freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your mega preview pod for the Ryder Cup. Ooh, feels so good to say that. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Greg, we made it. Happy Ryder Cup Tuesday.
One day closer, and it can't come soon enough. I'm not one to wish the days away, but Friday morning can't come soon enough.
Yeah, it starts on Friday, too. We got to wait the extra day.
I know, it kills you.
It's like Christmas Eve. Mark Immelman is here. Mark, good to have you.
Told you I was going to wear it. It's my 24 Bethpage Black Ryder Cup T-shirt. I'm ready. There it is. Let me get this. There, 2024. You'll never see this again. I'm jacked. I mean, look, we've waited an extra year and I get to go. My COVID test was negative, thankfully. So I'm flying up Thursday morning. Apparently the weather is cold right now and the golf course is softish and long. So I'm keen to get there and see what's going on.
All right, we're keen to get you there. Kyle Porter is here. KP, welcome.
Yeah, I was just telling y'all, I almost didn't make it to the podcast. I pulled a Rory at Medina in 2012. I misjudged the time. I was in a different time zone, and yeah, thanks for waiting for me. Here we are. Sorry for holding us up.
In your defense, we're going 30 minutes earlier than normal. This is not our normal time slot. We've been moved up.
Hopefully I go Rory on and just just mop the floor with Keegan on Sunday to win the Ryder Cup. So hopefully this will be one of my all-time great podcasts.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's you, KP. Now, I'm not done with you because you've had a great year. You know, that you went viral at Augusta National. You were turned into a meme, which then turned into a cartoon, which was then, I don't know how they do it, digitally rendered onto the side of golf balls. And we have those golf balls to give away with your likeness. Are you being compensated by this? This is like the new college rules. We got to get you compensated for this in some way with your likeness out there in the wild.
Yeah, the NIL does not extend to golf bloggers, apparently. So that's unfortunate. It is. My friends thoroughly enjoy this. They enjoy me being a meme on the internet, and they give me hell about it all the time. Our pastor at our church was like, "Hey, I saw somebody giving away golf balls with you on them." I was like, "Yeah, I got like 4 dozen if you want some." So, yeah, it's all in good fun. It's been just an awesome year, and this week, this Ryder Cup is going to be, I think, hopefully a perfect cap to what's been an amazing year.
Do we have the image, Jacob? Do we have the image of the golf balls?
I'm sure we do.
We had it yesterday. I don't know where. Maybe not. While we're looking for that. Oh, yeah, there they are. If you're watching on YouTube, there they are. Look at that.
Jeez, bro, you got some big quads and stuff over your glutes.
Yeah,
are firing.
That's a John Rahm lower body there. That's thick. That's not what I actually look like, but everything else pretty good.
If you would like to win a dozen of those golf balls with Kyle Porter's eyes, there are 2 ways to do so. Both of them revolve around the exact final score prediction for this week's Ryder Cup. Way number 1, go over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and review your final score prediction, and maybe your Twitter handle to get in touch with you. That might be a good way to do it. Or you can comment on this very YouTube mega preview pod. Leave a comment, your exact score prediction. Follow us at First Cut Pod. That's the way we can send you a message if you actually do win. And you just never know. Those KP quad balls might be yours to whack around. Now, Greg, if you received these balls, I wouldn't even play them. I would never game those things. I would put them on the shelf. I would display them for the world to see.
Absolutely. I'd find a way to get, maybe a floating shelf or something. I'd hang them right here behind me.
Yep.
And they'd always be on site because they're that special. That unique. And I was saying yesterday, Kyle wasn't here for it, but a dream of mine has always been, if I wasn't in the golf world, I think I'd be a meme maker, and I can't even dream of being a meme. So that is
he said he wanted to be a meme maker.
Yeah. So you've made it, Kyle, and I fully support
it. You sound like you're about 75 right now, by the way.
Or like
I wanna be a-
8 years old. Like I feel like a child would be like, I want to grow up and be a meme maker.
I want to be Twitter famous. Yeah, I want to be famous on Instagram.
Uh,
Awesome.
Amazing stuff, gentlemen. We've got a Ryder Cup, and there is a stark contrast between at least the age groups that we have out there, Mark. The Americans seemingly much younger, the European team going with experience. And I wonder how in this type of format, both of those things could kind of lend themselves to success.
I think I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that one of the real keys to success this week, and it always is, but I think the captains are going to play a larger role in this because of, on the one side of the equation, you've got more inexperience, and on the other side, you got guys with some tired legs, to be honest with you. I mean, you got some 40 somethings. And so a lot of this is sort of timing guys and say, okay, we've got so many matches to play. This is how we're going to space guys out to get them rest. Because for the Westwoods and the Garcias and company, they're all in good shape for 40 somethings. But this golf course is a big walk. It really is a big walk, and it's uphill, downhill. And if you miss fairways, you're walking around in sand, which is always grueling. So it's going to take it out of you physically. So I think from the captaincy point of view, Captain Padraig and his crew are going to have to be smart about how much they play, folks, especially the elder statesmen. And then for the rookies on the other side, I think you sort of blood them a little bit. You get them in the mix early so they can get a feel for what it feels like and how the body is performing, because under this sort of pressure, it's like major championship pressure, but ratcheted up, which is crazy to believe because it's so high. And you can sit there on the sidelines and your mind can play so many tricks on you. But then once you get the tee in the ground and you get going, your body just performs at a different level and your senses are just so heightened. And so to get in there and get accustomed to it to a certain extent, or as much as you can, I think is a very important deal for Captain Stricker to get his youngsters out, get them into it, into the fray. Maybe they earn a point or something, get the confidence up, and then who knows, maybe they run with the ball. So from that point of view, with the breakdown and the makeup of the teams, I feel like captaincy is going to be very important this week.
I think that is maybe the most overlooked part of being a Ryder Cup captain here, KP. We talk a lot about the captain's picks. We talk a lot about any potential pods or pairings, but the in-event ebbs and flows and understanding, hey, maybe I want to get a young guy out early so that they can get the feel of this, not have to sleep on it for another day. Or, okay, I've got to dial back some of these guys. Those in-event adjustments are probably more important than anything else they do leading up and starting this event.
Yeah, and that's where Europe's been really good, right? Like I was just reading Ben Coley, who's a great writer for, I never get the name right. I think it's The Sporting Life. And he was writing about how, like, look, do you think Fleetwood and Molinari were slated to play 5 matches in Paris? No way, no chance. But Thomas Bjorn was like, oh, well, this look what we have here. And they just kind of rode them the entire way. Same thing with, I think about Thomas Pieters at Hazeltine. Thomas Pieters wasn't going to play 5 times or 4, whatever he played, 4 or 5 times with Rory. That was not the plan going in, but Europe adjusted to that. And I think the US has not, it's either they haven't had any plans or they've had too many. And they haven't had, like, you need a plan and a backup or like hey, we're going to ride this group or whatever. And I was listening to Spieth earlier, and he kind of sounded like that was more of what Stricker and those guys had in place right now was a plan and a contingency. And that's it. That's what we got. And we're going to hopefully ride guys that are hot and go in the Ryder Cup. So to me, that is, and it's hard to do because think about this. You have 3 years leading into this, and you got about 3 minutes to say, hey, this group's going out in afternoon 4 ball. And it's just I think it's a extraordinarily difficult thing to do. So I'm fascinated to see how just kind of both sides do that going into the week. And I think you're right. That's a big part of the captaincy at a Ryder Cup.
The 3 years of preparation for 3 minutes of decision making here, Greg, I think a lot of it, unfortunately for guys like me, it might not be quantifiable. It might be having your finger on the pulse of your team, understanding that no matter what, your golfer, all 12 of them are going to say, I'm ready to go out again. I want to go back. No one I can't imagine is going to say they don't want to go out. So you have to kind of, I don't want to say fade the noise, but like understand what they actually mean by that. What's best for the team? Make hard decisions. It's knowing your team enough to be able to do that.
Yes, no question about it. And the other thing is, preparation prepares you to make quick decisions. So all that time, all that preparation, and what they're going through right now is, okay, we're going to have an if-then. If these guys do this, then we're going to do this. And if they do this, then we're going to do this. And there can be very clear decisions that are made in advance. But at the same time, there's a feel that you got to have, and you got to be willing to adjust. And that's where the captain, which is something Ben Crenshaw has talked about when he was the captain in 1999. You got to have a real feel for the golf course, and a feel for your team, and a feel for who everybody likes, and who people like to play with. And when you have that feel, I think all those decisions that can seem overwhelming kind of get narrowed down for you. And the hope is the hard decisions are sitting guys, and the hard decisions aren't who you're going to play. And that's where it's really tough when it doesn't feel like anybody's playing well. It doesn't feel like you have any momentum, and you got to decide what to do. And in the case where everybody's playing well, it's a lot easier to just roll. And when the hard decision is, all right, I'm going to sit these guys who are hot down for these guys who are hot, that's a much easier decision to make.
We got you on mute, Mark.
That's my mistake. Sorry, my dog was barking in the background. I wanted to add to Rick and Carl's point there. Those points are what makes Paul Azinger's pod system genius. And it was sort of built on what they do in Bud's training. It's the SEAL team, where you've got these groups, and you've got a leader of the group, and then you've obviously got someone, the supervisor of everything. And each group, both teams have them, the groups of 4 players, and they're out there playing together, and each one has their lieutenant, whoever the vice captain is going out there with them. And he's sort of the guy who's speaking to the players all the time. He will be the guy that's out there on the golf course watching how they're playing, and then there will be the report back. So it's a very interactive sort of a system, and everybody should credit Paul Azinger for maybe not the genius of it, but just the bravado of it to do it in this way, because it proved great for him at Valhalla. And since then, it's sort of become something that everybody does. And so you get all these guys who know the game, they know the players, they've got great relationships. And so there's continual communication, which is crucial. And then they come back to the captain, then hopefully they make the smart decisions. So I think that pod system is a really wise way to go about things.
And, something that I didn't think about earlier in the week, and in all the lead up, and I wish I had, was that pod system, because it is a beautiful system to circumvent, problems between players. And all of a sudden you take a team of 12 where there's some likelihood that guys aren't going to get along, and you can cut that out right away through a pod. And now all of a sudden you don't need 12 guys to get along. You need 3 groups of 4 to get along. And that in a way can be a lot easier. It's not always that simple, but I do think it at least alleviates some of that pressure between players.
The interactions between these teams are not just captain to player. They're obviously player to player, KP, and we're already seeing kind of those dynamics in play as the teams are on site. The European team releases a pump up video of 164 guys who have ever been a member of Team Europe, which is less than those who have either been in space or walked on the moon. I can't remember, but the US then responds with Bryson and Brooks talking to each other for 4 seconds on the driving range before walking away from one another.
Yeah, I'm unconvinced that was Brooks. I think it was a stunt double. We never saw his face.
It didn't even really look like. I didn't know who that was. I thought that was Joel Damon. That's who it looks like to me.
We didn't see his face. I'm dubious. I need more footage of. No, I mean, it's See, they've already deleted it as producer Jacob is can't get to it. There we go. Yeah, here's Brooks. I mean, is that him? Maybe not. It could be like from right there. It looks like it could be a Finau sibling or something. Who can say? Yeah, I look like Europe's so good at just. It's almost comical. Like Europe is so good at this week. Like they're just awesome at the entire week from start to finish, from press conference to pairings to press to like just everything, all of it. Uniforms aren't great, but everything else is awesome. And the U.S. is so bad at it. Like they're so comically bad at just the whole week. And that I think they're gonna win. I think their talent is overwhelming. I think the course plays into their hands big time, but it is like just the juxtaposition to start the first 2 days of this entire week. It feels like really like there's a ton of clarity about why Europe wins this event all the time, right? Just from, and again, like we're way on the outside looking in, but I don't know. It kind of seems like that's what it's like on the inside as well.
Well, you make up such a good point there, Carl, and I'm going to go back a little bit to a few Ryder Cups past, and the author of this all to me was Tony Jacklin. You know, when obviously they brought in Europe into the fray, and then Tony Jacklin's first move with the Europeans was to say, the Americans have got the best clothes. They travel in the Concorde. He goes, we're getting treated like second-class citizens. So he goes, we're going to do this right, and we're going to make our guys feel like they belong. So he did that with his Power Six and Seve and Langer and Olazabal and Faldo and Woozy and that crowd, Sandy Lyle, and that built it. Then Bernard Gallagher came along after Jacklin, and he started this, you might have won, but we're still the underdog thing with him. And they still do this. They still believe they're the underdog. They are in the world rankings, but they've won how many of the last few, but they still believe that they're the underdogs. And then I spent time with Paul McGinley, who I thought was a tremendous captain, right? And in his team room, he had a guy basically paint these portraits of pictures of them in the comeback at Medina, like Justin Rose with that fist pump, you know, holding his hands open, and they had the European stars coming out there, and then he had one of someone who was like the rock of the team, and he had these pictures all over the place, and they were using this imagery of, you know, the pictures of what they've done, even though they're the underdogs, and how they can do this in a hostile environment again. And the one thing about all these Euro captains, they just follow the plan that's been set up now. No one's reinventing the wheel. They're not egos with these captains that they have to do it a certain way. They're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have good stuff, even though the uniforms don't look good, according to Kyle. We've got pictures on the wall.
Horrible.
We've got the underdog thing. We're going to have a whole lot of fun with this. We're going to pick the guys we know work, and we'll see how the whole thing shakes out. So kudos to them for shelving the ego and just going about this with a plan that works.
And Mark, I think. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
No. You go, Greg.
I was going to say what Mark just brought up, how they continue to do the same thing and no one reinvents the wheel. That's why they're so good at this week, like Kyle was saying, because they have the experience that is positive experience, where when the Americans change things year in and year out after a couple of losses, a devastating loss, we got to invent a pod system, which is great. We got to have a task force, which make of that whatever you will. But we change our plan chasing victories where they keep doing the same thing. And it's like a football team who has a coach for a long period of time and a quarterback for a long period of time. They can continue to get better and better and better. Whereas the teams like my Jets, who continuously have a new regime and a new quarterback, they continue to spin their wheels. So I think that's a great point, Mark. They keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, and they are the underdogs, by the way. Like their players are just not as good, almost always. But I think, you know, I was on the No Laying Up podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Chris Solomon kind of brought this up of like, even when they lose, like when the Europeans lose, like 16 or 2008, it's not like it's kind of what Greg just said. It's not like, oh, we got to like do all these 20 different things. It's like, oh, we just lost. We just lost. And I think it's because, and again, this goes back, I've been talking about this for 2 weeks now. They trust one another. They trust the plan and the process that they have in place. And the Americans don't. They don't trust one another. They don't trust, they haven't, there's been no like continuity in terms of not players. I think they've actually had a lot of continuity with players, but they haven't had continuity when it comes to, hey, here's our plan, right? They like once you start changing stuff up, it almost like you almost just keep like that's what you do is you keep changing stuff up. You can't get into the rhythm of like, hey, here's a plan, here's a long-term plan. And that's what Europe has done so well is almost, especially in their losses, is that they haven't panicked and they've just kind of moved on to the next match.
I have to say this. Since the turn of the century, yeah, they're the underdogs every time, but 9 matches played, they've won 7. They've won 7 of 9 Ryder Cups since 2002. There's something to be said.
I mean,
yeah, they're the underdogs.
What does that mean, though?
Well, they on paper they're the best Ryder Cup team, but they're the underdogs. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, in the world rankings, but because that's the whole thing. Like I've said, like we've all said in so many words, they're a team because the Ryder Cup to me is a whole bunch of couples matches and some singles. 12 points of the total that you have to amass, whatever it is to win. 20. What do you need to win? 28.
14 and a half.
Yeah, there's 28 total points.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all couples matches, and it's a team thing. And that's where they are the consummate team, even though individually they're the underdogs. Because it's really not an individual thing, really.
But what has happened in the past doesn't mean that they should be the favorites. And they shouldn't be the favorites this year. They shouldn't be the favorites, and they have worse golfers. Like and yeah, I don't think that past history should dictate what is going on in present day.
I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying it's curious how every year they come in as the underdog, and they've won 7 of 9 since 2002.
Yeah, I mean that's what has made this event fascinating.
A lot of plus money on the European side. Final thought on this: we're not going to do the Brooks Bryson thing, but Greg, Bryson said, and I quote, "There's something fun coming up here," referring to him and Brooks. Would you like to take a stab at the fun item that might be coming up?
No.
I will. They're going to play against each other in the match, right? Like that has to be it. It has to be Bryson and Celebrity versus Brooks and Celebrity. Give this a final thing, raise money, end it. There you go.
Oh, so you think the fun thing coming up is after Ryder Cup, later on in the year? Yeah, that's a good guess.
I don't think they're playing with each other at the Ryder Cup. So yeah, I think
maybe it was that video from the range. Maybe that was
the fun. That was it.
Yeah, that was the fun thing. They chatted for 40 seconds.
Yeah, Brooks. Imagine if he told us that. You'll see a video coming out soon. Brooks is going to come over and talk to me, and I'll wave at the crowd.
Brooks is entering the long drive contest. They're going to travel together to Mesquite.
That would be so good. I'd be so thrilled about that. A couple of quick items here, gentlemen. We can kind of go through these pretty quick. I'll start here with you, Greg. Collin Morikawa has essentially flown under the radar for the entirety of this Ryder Cup, despite being literally the #1 auto qualifier here. The guy that would, in theory, be one of the guys who, you throw this thing on his shoulders. I don't know what anybody makes of what we expect to see from Morikawa. He's a rookie. He hasn't played all that well coming in. He's dealt with a little bit of a back thing. Like what's happening here?
My hope is that he's healthy. And I hope in the time period between Tour Championship and now, he's been able to get his game back in shape. And I trust his preparation. I trust his process. He's kind of in his own game. He's very much like the Europeans in that he doesn't change the plan. He's been working with the same process and the same coach, Rick Sessinghouse, since he was 8 years old. And I expect that to continue. And when it comes time for a big event, there are few players in the world, age aside, who are more mentally mature than him. So I don't think there's a rookie in the game who is more ready for this kind of a stage. So I trust that things could go well for him. I mean, you worried about his putting? Yeah, Yeah, I am. But again, I go back to what his mind has, and what his mind is capable of is really strong. And the other aspect I think goes well for him is the pod that he's in. And you look at, there's an obvious pairing of Xander and Cantlay. Kyle has brought up on numerous occasions Morikawa and Xander playing together. And then the other guy that you might see him play with is Dustin Johnson. And I think those are really strong pairings. So I expect to see a good performance out of him. Is he going to be the leading point winner? I don't know, but I expect to see a good performance out of him.
Two things, Greg. Xander and Cantlay to me are like Rose and Stenson, where it's kind of one of those anchors that as a captain, you put them out, whether it's 4-ball or foursome, and you know that they're likely to get you points. So I can't see them being split, but you never know. But I can allay your concerns because I made a point of talking to Colin at the Tour Championship. It was Wednesday in the practice round. So I'm like, how's your back? And he goes, no, I'm good. You know, it happened after the Olympics and the travel back from Tokyo. And he said what happened was because the back was tightened, the golf swing started to develop compensations, really. So he got his golf swing all out of whack timing wise, but then they got the back figured out, and then he and Rick hooked up, and he said he felt like everything was back on track. But in terms of health, he told me at the Tour Championship, he felt fine. It was just a question of now starting to, swing properly. And to your observation, make putts, because this week is all about making putts.
I was underwhelmed by the Cantlay Xander pairing at the President's Cup. I thought it was fine. I thought they were pretty low energy. I don't know. They're awesome, and they're the two guys that we talk about a ton of guys that don't have any holes. But I don't know. It didn't totally work for me. I do think we'll see them a ton this week though. So maybe they go 4-0. Who knows? Maybe they're the Fleetwood Molinari. But I wanted to say real quick, the pods that we're seeing, like the guys that are playing together so far this week, I think are awesome. Like it's the one you just mentioned, Cantlay, Xander, DJ, Morikawa. They put Bryson with the adults, JT and Spieth, right, and Scheffler.
Yeah,
Texas group there.
Yeah, and JT and Spieth can babysit Bryson or whatever, and then you've got who does it?
Berger. So Berger, English, Finau, Koepka.
Yeah, I think I think those are great. Like, I think that works. And I think it's straightforward. You're not trying to do anything crazy. And I'm excited about what's going to come out of that and how that'll play out when it comes to the pairings.
I agree, Kyle. They're fantastic. I think they're as natural as it could get. And when you look at the Berger, Koepka, Florida State thing, I think there could be something there. Berger and English just look on paper like they'd be a perfect pair, a match made in heaven. And Finau and Koepka fit. I thought Finau and DJ or Finau and DeChambeau would also work. But I have no problem with that option. I think Koepka Finau could be a real force.
I think
it made me feel good because my bet with you, Kyle, was looking sad after the Brooks Golf Digest comments, but that pot over there, it percolated my hopes a little bit to maybe see Brooks more often than not.
Well, you might see Brooks 5 times. You ain't seeing Bryson 5 times. He's not, and I think they did this. Like, Bryson is borderline unplayable in alternate shot. Like you put yourself in a really bad scenario. And I think they did that. I think they put in with Scheffler purposefully because you're not going to roll Scheffler out there 4 times in his first Ryder Cup. He's a piece of the puzzle, but he's not. It's not JT Spieth or Cantlay Xander, or even like DJ Morikawa. So I think that I like that they have Bryson and Scheffler kind of hidden a little bit there with JT and Spieth.
Hey, producer Jacob, did I say both Bryson and Brooks all 5 times, or was it just Brooks?
Pretty sure it was both.
Yes, I'm getting the yes. All right, cool.
I worry about Brooks 5 times. I think with that, if you have somebody with a wrist injury and you play him in alternate shot and he gets a bad lie in the rough and gets hurt, you lose the point and a whole ton of DraftKings points. And if you now we're talking. But if you go in 4 ball, now all of a sudden he can lean on Finau or Berger or English, and they can play their way in. They're at a huge disadvantage, but you can at least finish the match, and you have a chance. So I would really worry. I'd be concerned about Brooks and alternate shot, just because a wrist injury can be so nagging. And even if you're feeling good, it definitely would have my concern as a captain.
I think they'll be conservative with most of these guys. Honestly, I think that's their advantage, right? Is to not like Europe has to. Yeah, Europe has to. I mean, Rahm and Rory have to play 5 times. Like, there's no question. And honestly, like Hovland and Sergio might have to play 5 times as well. And the U.S. can, and this has gotten them into a little bit of trouble in the past, where they have, again, too many options. But they can kind of pick and choose, like riding, who's hot, pulling Koepka back, definitely hiding Bryson until, away from foursome. So I think that's, to Greg's point, that's to the US's advantage.
We're going to talk about our bets here on the other side, but real quick, we've spent a lot of time talking about the lack of fans at events. We're getting fans, guys. There are going to be fans at Whistling Straits. Mark, I imagine it is going to be as boisterous as ever. If we get whenever Bryson goes off number 1, I'm hoping he gives us the full-on speed training, try to drive the green swing that we've seen on his YouTube channel. Like, just give me all of this.
Yeah, that would be cool. Because those first tees, I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was at the last one at Hazeltine out here in the United States, and it was massive. And apparently France was crazy. And now this year, they're going even bigger. But to me, the one thing, look, I think the fans are going to play a big part in this. They really, really are. But the one thing about this golf course, unlike maybe Le Golf National, which is also on a big premises, but other courses like Medina, where it's tree lined and stuff, it jams fans in there. And so you're playing in a cauldron on every hole, and there's just 4 matches out, and you just feel like folks are on top of you, and the noise is unfathomable. But this place is so spread out, and it's by the lake, so noise kind of dissipates some. And there's so many hills and valleys and sand dunes and stuff that there'll be folks all over the show, but they're not on top of each other like they are on certain other golf courses. So that might mitigate it some, but I still feel like the home course advantage here, Green Bay, for goodness sake, is going to be huge for the Americans. It really is.
That home course advantage, Greg. I'm just excited. Obviously, golf came back. There were no fans. This is the one event. If you guys remember, I don't know when this was, a year ago, whatever. We were like, yeah, you can play golf without fans, but you can't play the Ryder Cup without fans. This is where most people drew the line, and now we're gonna see it.
They're a huge, even for the Europeans. It's a huge factor. When you suck the energy out of a home crowd as an away team, it has a really positive effect. The analogy is, and Jacob will be happy I'll get away from a football analogy here. In sailing, you can sail into the wind. That's always like blown my mind. Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you? Yeah. But you can sail into the wind. I've never understood how that happens, but there's a way. You turn the sail, swing the swing something starboard. Yeah, swing the jib starboard.
You're out of you sound like Phil right now. You're out of your skis a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah, talking about ice cream sales. But anyway, you can use an energy here in a positive or in a negative way. And there's a way to turn somebody who's against you and quiet them. And that can fuel you just the same way as when Bryson drives the first green. It's if he drives the first green, it is extremely exciting, and that will pump a ton of energy into the crowd. So it's a huge factor in a Ryder Cup every single year, home or away for either team. And you're right, Rick. You can't play a Ryder Cup without fans, so it's very exciting.
If Bryson doesn't try to drive the first green, then why are we even having the event?
They should just concede every hole after that.
Yeah, just head back to the clubhouse. Now I'm excited. I hope. And in 2016, it was awesome. I mean, it was just the experience of a lifetime for me to cover it. But it was also really bad at times. like some stuff that was said to Rory, and it just got out of hand. And I don't, it's nonsense. And I'm hopeful that everybody there is so grateful just to have this event, just to be at it, that it's a little bit of a reset, that it doesn't get out of hand like that. And that it stays kind of within the bounds of what is acceptable at a sporting event like that. But it's going to be insane. It's going to be just the best after 3 years of waiting for it, after 5 years of waiting for it in the US. I can't wait. And I think it's awesome that it's on Lake Michigan. It's going to be beautiful. And, it's going to feel, it's like fall golf weather. It's just, it's going to be awesome.
Kyle, that's that Hazeltine Ryder Cup you speak of. It's the same sort of ilk of fan that was out there in Minnesota that will be around the place here in Milwaukee. And I was there too. And you're right. They went after Rory in a big way to start because he was like the tip of the European spear. And so they were trying to sort of knock Samson down, if you will. But Rory, in the end, you remember how he goaded the fans? Like he'd hit a good shot and he'd turn and bow to them and he'd hold a putt and he'd be like, come on, and it almost became this protagonist versus the fans thing. And so it's, instead of just putting his head down and playing, he almost wound them up into a froth where these folks were, they were off the chain. It was crazy, the fans out there. And there were some horrible things said. But, I think if he had maybe played it a bit more cool and he didn't have that sort of edge about him because he did that week, maybe it wouldn't have been as nasty, but it was pretty horrible.
This is, sorry, were you hopping in there? No?
Well, no,
Sorry.
I mean, I think you can, I don't think what a player, it's a show, right? It's entertainment. Like you're supposed to do those. That's what Patrick Reed does when he goes to Scotland. That's what you expect from Rory and Rahm and everybody else when they come here. It doesn't justify what happens after that. And I think there are times when it gets like, I don't know, you've been out there, like legit kind of scary when you're 3 feet away from a bunch of like clowns that are like going crazy. I mean, it's, we've kind of joked about it, but it's like, what's this going to be like at Bethpage in, 2025 when you've got all these just lunatics running around, and John Rahm's going to like
making friends in New York too, Kyle.
it's well,
Crossing them off the list.
It is what it is. Like, you guys have been at U.S. Opens there and PGAs there. It's crazy. I mean, and they're proud of that. Like that's their thing. So, the showmanship that you see at a Ryder Cup certainly does not justify some of the things that are said and how close some fans get to the players. And I think that's going to be. I hope it's not a big story this week. I think it will be a big story at future Ryder Cups.
The entertainment will be Super Bowl levels. The wagering will be Super Bowl levels. You can bet on seemingly everything. We are going to go through some of the more popular options. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
Joining Inside the NFL on Paramount Plus is a huge honor. Got James Brown, Brandon Marshall, Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, Phil Simms. Stacked.
Inside the NFL. New episodes streaming Tuesdays exclusively on Paramount Plus.
And we're back. Greg's arm hair just stood up there, didn't it, my friend?
I did not.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, not yet.
You didn't see that one coming, did you? That commercial?
No, I didn't see the commercial coming. That's new heights. We're reaching new heights, just like Zach Wilson.
Do you ever think it's interesting? Every time I see John Rahm's name, he doesn't have an H in John, but he has a random one in Rahm. What is?
Yeah,
they just moved it.
I was thinking about his first. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, the H in Rahm isn't random. If the H wasn't there, it'd be Ram.
Yeah.
Right. So you need the.
It's not random. So
it should be Joan.
John Ram.
It should be Joan.
Yeah, Joan Ram. Joan Rahm.
But when you spell Jonathan, there's no H there. So when you go to just the shortened version of John, which is my father's name, there's an H in there. So I don't know. I get
hey,
it.
We need the coach on for an official judgment here.
Rick, unless you Jonathan Vegas, he's got the H there.
He's also got the H at a different spot as well.
Yeah. Where is
was
that?
there was also there was a running back for Texas a few years ago that was Jonathan with an H. Can't remember his last name. Maybe producer Jacob's deep in the college football wagering world, so maybe he remembers.
I always think it's interesting when like Johns go by Jack. There's always like that's a different episode. There's some nicknames out there.
Jonathan Gray. There you go. Producer Jacob, clutch. My son's name is Jonathan Jack, and we call him Jack. I don't know how that fits into this conversation, but
typically the Jack is just like sailing. This is another one of my expertises. But the Jack is typically when a father is John and they name your son John, right? Instead of John Jr., you go he's Jack.
But why Jack?
Yeah, that isn't it. Why Jack? It's a great question. It's like I have an Aunt Peggy and her real name's Margaret. And when I found out that her name was Margaret and she went by Peggy, my mind blew. Where does that come from? I don't get it. I never do, and I don't think I ever will.
I was thinking about John Rahm's name today, though. I don't know why. I'm like just completely out of my mind during Ryder Cup week, just thinking about just bizarre things. And his first name it seems weird that there's not an H. I don't know why I was actually thinking about this today in light of this conversation, but it's weird. It's weird that it's just Jon. Other people are named that as well, but yeah, you're right. It's odd.
Rick, get this thing back on the tracks for us, please.
We will get to the bottom of the nicknames and the spellings at some point, but for now, we're going through our betting options, and there's plenty of them. We have narrowed it down to some of the most popular ones that we think are going to be worth a good discussion, and we're going to start with the top European. This is the golfer to score more points for Team Europe than any other player. I think usually 3 or 3.5 will win this for you, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. I assume history says something like that.
Yeah.
4 probably get to the outright. 3.5. 3 is probably 3.5 might be a push, but I think 3 is probably a push.
3.5, 4 is pretty good.
Pretty solid. Okay, Mark, we're going to start with you. Top European, no surprise to see 2 big names at the top. Jon Rahm plus 333, Rory McIlroy plus 500. Those are the 2 that most people are going to assume are going to do the heavy lifting. Who is your top European?
Well, I struggled to avert my eyes from Jon Rahm because he's going to get 5 goes, and the way he's playing he's so solid. Kyle has documented this, but I have a sense now, unless I'm wrong and my mind is failing me because I'm fresh off a flight from Philly, but I know Victor Hovland was in the same pot as him, and I have a feeling that they may play together. And I think Rahm and Hovland could be dynamite. And then I have a sense if Hovland's going well, which he's probably going to, he'll go out early on Sunday and get himself a quick win. So I've actually went with Hovland as the top Euro this week in Wisconsin.
I did too. Sorry to jump in here. I went with Hovland as well. I think that his games, it just fits this course so well. And the Euros I looked this up, the last 3 Ryder Cups, they've had a rookie that's scored at least 3 points. In 2014, it was Jamie Donaldson. 2016, it was Thomas Pieters. 2018, it was Molinari and Fleetwood that scored at least 3 points. And I wonder if Harrington tries to just like, like Mark just said, if he tries to pair like, let's say Rahm and Hovland and then Sergio and Rory, and just tries to ride like they're like just tries to like clean house with as many
get eight points from those 4 guys.
Yeah, or like 6 or 7, and then try to steal a couple elsewhere over the first couple days, and then just see what happens on singles, because those 4 guys specifically off the tee are just so like they just set up so well for this golf course in a way that Fitzpatrick and Poulter and Westwood and those guys do not at all. So I'm interested to see how they do those pairings.
Mark and Kyle with Victor Hovland plus 650 to be top European. Greg, I went with Paul Casey. I'm not sure how much I love this, but I saw the 10-1 number. I think we talked about this on Monday, kind of plays a more American style of golf. He's great off the tee. He's going to need a partner who can putt. But I think to me, the European team is incredibly top heavy, and someone's going to have to step up after that. And I'm thinking, why not Paul Casey at 10-1?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great number. The thing you're really hinging on is a great early start. Where it's so, he's got to win convincingly with somebody who can also go, if he's paired with a Lee Westwood or something and there's like rest built in to the plan, then I think that could hinder Paul Casey. Although you could still be the point leader with rest. It's not the end of the world, but the concern with Hovland and I would include Casey, I would include everybody in this except Rahm and Rory. The concern is if something doesn't go well early, they're not going to get the automatic crack. Whereas Rahm and McIlroy, they're gonna go 5 no matter what. And the way that they play, in my opinion, they've built so much stock and they're so young, they're in their prime, they're able to go 5 matches. They're gonna go 5. I'm almost sure of it. And so for that reason, I prefer Rory McIlroy in this. I think it's a slightly better number than Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm's coming off a missed cut. I think I just like Rory slightly more than Rahm in this, but to me, I think you got to stick with one of those two.
5-1 for Rory McIlroy.
I think the other one sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna. It's not the best number, but I think I do think it's your best chance, and I kind of draw a line under Rahm and Rory, and I say it's going to be one of those two guys, and I prefer I don't like 3 to whatever plus 333. I don't like that.
I think, Greg, that Hovland's one of your 5 match guys, even as a rookie. He's the second highest ranked player on the team. He's been playing fantastic. He's the kind of guy. Remember, he's won the USAM where you've got to be a match play fiend. And I know that's amateur golf, and this is all stuff in the past, but he's got what it takes. And he's got the mental acumen to really get in there and mix it up with some of the heavyweights. He's proved to us that he can. So I'm prepared to bet that he's a 5 match guy.
I think Mark might be right. I think the other guy that's interesting here is Sergio at 11, because Sergio's played out of a possible 44 sessions, he's played 41 over the course of his career, which is
pretty good. That's a lot.
I mean, I think Rory's played 24 of 24.
Rory's missed 24-25.
Yeah. One
time. in 2010, they had a weather thing. So they only had 4 sessions.
Oh,
I thought they condensed them. They did 6. Didn't they do 6? They did 6 matches.
Exactly. So they only did 4 sessions and they did 6 matches in each.
Gotcha. So I misread the Wikipedia page.
And Sergio just plays a ton, and he's been driving it great. Again, this course is, you got to drive it well. 11-1 is a really good number for somebody that historically has played that many matches. So I think he's interesting here also.
All right,
if I was American, I got to say this: if I'm an American guy, and I love Sergio, especially in this format. He finds a different gear. He's got that sort of a thing about him. But if I'm playing him and I'm American, I'm watching him hole every 3-footer all day long, and I will say it to him. He'll look over at you and I'm like, "No, buddy, you putt that stuff, because you and I both know what you like over the short stuff." Just how it is.
Imagine Sergio and Jordan Spieth having a 4-foot putting contest. Let's bop on over to the American side of things.
This is just a drive-by on Spieth. My gosh. Mark's hollering about the Euros, and Rick just does a drive-by on a 3-time major winner. That's unreal.
I just can imagine these two telling each other they got to putt everything out. It'd be amazing. Top American. So this is much more spread out here, Greg. Justin Thomas, the shortest odds. He plays every single match. He's got a great partnership. So does Patrick Cantlay. So does Jordan Spieth. So does Xander Schauffele. The American side, it's kind of take your pick seemingly of one of those guys, because you know you're going to get built-in opportunity. But would you like to find someone else on the board?
I think Mr. 3-footer Jordan Spieth is the guy here. This event just means so much to him. His record has been so good, and I think he's got to crack through eventually in the singles. It's so hard for me to picture Jordan Spieth being 0-7 in team singles, like in Ryder Cup, President's Cup singles. I cannot picture that. And he's played well at Whistling Straits before. I expect him to again. I think any of those four players are a really solid option. And of course, the team of Schauffele and Cantlay is far less proven. And they have a 2-2 record together, 2-0 in foursomes, 2-0 in single in four ball. And when you bring that against the Europeans, it could change significantly. So my lean, I believe the safest play, and I'm comfortable with the number on Spieth. Going below that, there's options, especially if it doesn't go well for the Americans. I think there's more options on the American side because they're not so reliant on two players the way, I mean, it sounds like you guys think three. I kind of draw the line at two, as I said earlier. But I think all 12 of these guys are capable of going 5 matches. And for that reason, I don't think anyone should. But that's just me.
Jordan Spieth 7-1 for Greg. I took half a point and took Patrick Cantlay at 7.5 to 1. I also think when we get the pairings, there's some interesting things to be had when we see what goes out Friday morning. But KP, you and Mark are both in lockstep again here. So this time around, I'll give you the crack to go first.
Yeah, this is hard because Greg is right. It's harder to know like who's going the distance here. I feel pretty confident that JT is going to play 5 matches. I mean, I think it kind of flew under the radar that he went 4-1 in Paris. I mean, he's the only guy since Corey Pavin in '95 to win at least 4 points for a U.S. team in a Ryder Cup. So the only guy over the last, 25 years? And he wasn't great this summer, but 2 of his last 3 events, or I guess 2 of the 3 playoff events, he gained strokes putting. That was kind of the thing that had plagued him throughout the summer. So it seemed like it kind of came around a little bit. And I think that he's in the same way that I think Rory is kind of the heartbeat of the Euro side, I think that's JT on the US side. And I think even if it doesn't go well in the first match, I think you roll him and Spieth back out there. You know, I really do. So I think he gets 5 matches, and I think he's probably even though it's not a great number, I still like him a lot better than like a Xander at just, Xander at 7-1, I think is way worse than JT at 6-1.
Mark, you're on the same page.
I am, and sort of thinking along the same lines as Kyle. I just feel like Justin Thomas, I mean, the physical gifts aside, he's the lightning rod of this United States team. He's likely to be, him and Spieth, the most vocal guys in the locker room afterwards. When he gets out there and plays, he's got that sort of a bulldog thing about him, and he's not afraid to get in your face, and he's up for the battle all of the time. And just like Garcia, just like Poulter in a funny sort of a way, Justin seems to raise the level of his play when he's just head to head, when it's that like you versus me thing. And so I love him in this format. I think his game's going to do well. And the putting is trending in the right direction.
Let's move our attention to top overall point score. Now, this could easily be one of the guys that we picked to win the U.S. side or the European side. I've opted to go in kind of a different direction and try to tell a little bit of a story here. For me, it's Rory McIlroy. If the Europeans win, it is because their stars have shined very brightly. Jon Rahm gets the job done. Rory McIlroy gets the job done. You get the seemingly guaranteed 5 matches out of Rory McIlroy. So that's where I'm going, with longer odds for Rory McIlroy to be the top overall point scorer. And Mark, I'm going to go right back to you because I think you kind of are on a similar page here.
Yeah, I actually leant towards Jon Rahm, and I know I'd said that I thought Victor Hovland was going to be the best European, but I get, again, the sense that he and Hovland are going to play together. They're going to make a cracking pair. And the way Rahm is going along, he just wants to win so bad. And he's an imposing figure. He's a big, strong, tall guy who's not afraid to look you in the eye, and he's got that death stare about him. And if he draws a rookie or someone in like a Bernd Wiesberg, or one of the American rookies in the first game, like a Scheffler or something, you'll stare a hole in him. So I feel like Rahm is going to be really tough, and he's going to play 5 games.
Okay, that leaves us with, let's go to you, Greg. You are doubling down on Mr. Jordan Spieth, and for top overall point scorer, now you get into double digits, 10-1 for Mr. Spieth.
And I do prefer, depending on what your budget allows, I prefer this over, well, maybe not. Maybe the better value is the top American point scorer. But I like this one too. I think at 10-1, it's a fairly good number. And the story that I'm painting is that the U.S. wins, and so the top scorer on the U.S. is going to be the top scorer in the overall competition. So it's a pretty simple one for me, and I'm doubling down on the American darling. If Justin Thomas is the heartbeat, I think Jordan is our darling.
Well, Kyle, your heartbeat for the American team is also your pick to be the top overall point scorer, the Justin Thomas. In this case, you're getting him at 9-1 to be the king of this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, so many of the same reasons that I laid out earlier. I think the biggest one is just having confidence. And that's part of like picking this event is so different than picking a stroke play, even like a major championship, because you know at a US Open, it's like, well, most of these guys are going to play 4 rounds, and going into this, you're like, I think this guy will play 3 matches or 5. It's so odd. But I have a lot of confidence that JT will go 5, and that just like in Paris, he'll win a bunch of them.
Let's talk wild cards. That is what most sports books are using to refer to as captain's picks. So if you hear me say wild card, that is what I'm talking about. Gentlemen, I'm the lone wolf here for the U.S. wild card. We'll hang on to that in just one second. Mark, lead the way here. You, Greg, and Kyle have all chosen the same wild card for the U.S. team.
And if Harris English was a captain's pick, I would have picked him. Yeah, but just Daniel Berger is a tremendous player. He's got that grit about him. I'm a little concerned at what is normally a strength of the game, and that's the putting, because he hasn't looked as convincing on the greens, but he's so reliable, and it's going to be cold. The wind blows a little bit there on the banks of the of Lake Michigan and hits the thing head high. So I think it's going to shape up for him to hit that low carving cut shot down there and earn a few points like he did at Liberty National.
Greg, Daniel Berger.
I thought Harris English was a captain's pick.
Yeah,
no, he was automatic, wasn't he?
No.
Yes. Forgive me. There were 6. Yeah, I've got that wrong.
6-1 for Harris English to be the top U.S. wild card. Daniel Berger 5.5-1.
Ooh,
Greg,
now I'm concerned. Harris is going to be good this week.
Oh, there you go, Greg. How do you feel about Daniel Berger? I assume very well.
See, yeah, very, very well. I mean, I really should. Wild card, my mind just didn't go to Spieth. And so if I want to differentiate a little bit, this is the reason why I'm not going with Jordan Spieth. Although based on the other story that I've told, it's silly not to go with Spieth in this form. But I'm going to differentiate a little bit here and go with Daniel Berger. I think his game is really well-rounded. I really like the potential pairings that I'm seeing, at least out of the quote-unquote pods that have been presented to us, or seemingly so. And if those really are the pods, I like a Koepka Berger pairing. I really like a English Berger pairing. I think those two guys are ready to go for being Ryder Cup rookies, and he could be an unsung hero here. So I'm hoping for it. I was adamant about him being picked on this team, and he was. So I got to get a little Daniel Berger action in here.
I think I had Berger also. I think Koepka Berger has the feel of like, oh, you guys won 4 and 3 on Friday morning. Okay, you're going again, right? I think that's one of those. If they end up playing together, that's one of those that you could just keep. If they're hot, you keep, because Berger, I mean, last 3 months he was, I think, 4th out of everybody in this field in terms of strokes gained, and went Rahm, Cantlay, Harris English, and then I think Berger. Like, he's been awesome from tee to green over the last several months. So I'm excited about him, and I think that he's somebody that if he gets hot, you keep riding him. Like you keep throwing him back out there no matter the format.
And I also think, Kyle, to that point, he is kind of a jack of all trades. in that he would be a great fit in both formats. Whereas Koepka, I already documented my concerns about him in foursome play. I don't have those concerns at all with Daniel Berger. I think he'd be a great alternate shot player, and maybe as valuable in that he's extremely versatile because his game is so well rounded. And I just think he's a little bit better, a little more reliable with the ball striking than Harris English, who also has a similar feel to him, a jack of all trades kind of player. Because of Daniel Berger's strength with the iron play, I think he has an edge to get more matches, and he may play with Harris English in alternate shot and Koepka in foursomes, in four ball rather. Maybe he gets a Finau. I think he could play with anybody, and so he could be a real horse for us.
I'd like to see the Finau Berger. I think that would be really interesting.
That's
especially
the man I went with.
Especially if Brooks needs a nap, then you can just throw, get Finau out there, and
it's a nap, and he has to watch Sports Center, is what he told us.
Oh, forgot.
So that's like 2.5 hours in the middle of the day. You got to do. I did go with Tony Finau. I just think he is ultimately pairable, ultimately talented, could be good in a lot of different situations. I'm going to be running out Mr. Finau as my U.S. wild card. So let's turn our attention to European wild card. There's only 3 options here, gentlemen: Sergio Garcia, Ian Poulter, and Shane Lowry. And according to our friends over at Caesars, basically all the same odds. Sergio's plus 170. Poulter and Lowry are both plus 175. So, Mark, take your pick.
Ian Poulter. And I feel like he's going to play some alternate shot with Rory McIlroy. And Poulter, I know everyone's speaking about Garcia. There's something about Ian Poulter in this format. We know this. And I know this is a lot of golf course, but the emphasis around you is playing from the fairway. Because the way it rolls out a little bit, a lot of fairways, you're not hitting into hills. So you can get some scoot along these fairways, even if it's moist. So he can hit a tumbling draw. That's kind of his shot a little bit. So he's not going to be playing from too far away. And he's going to be playing approach shots first, which means he's going to put pressure on folks. And he's just up for this sort of stuff. So Poulter and McIlroy will play foursomes. Of this, I'm convinced. I'm choosing Poulter this week.
Interesting. I will bite on Sergio Garcia. I think he's going to have to play a lot. I think he's going to have to obviously rely on the tee to green play, and we'll see how that goes. Greg, Poulter, Sergio, or Lowry, please.
I think Sergio is probably the smartest play here, but the Ryder Cup and paper don't really get along too well. So in that case, I'm going Ian Poulter here. I got to get a little Ian Poulter action in this. It's not my favorite. This isn't my favorite bet here, but I think you got to touch Poulter at somewhere. And there's just that chance that the magic comes out and the miracle comes out again, even though it doesn't add up on paper. But the way that he rolls it and some of the partners that he could draw, I could see Ian Poulter being a 3-point guy. If he is, it's bad news for the U.S. But I do think he could be a force again.
If Ian Poulter gets 3 points, the Europeans have won.
That's a problem. I don't think Poulter is super playable on this course. He hasn't been great at a Ryder Cup since 2010, 2012, maybe. He was okay in 18. I think he went 2-2. He was not very good in 2014 at Glen Eagles. And honestly, like he hasn't been great from tee to green this year. He's like outside the top 100 in the world. Like he's not. If I'm Europe, I would play a Bernd Wiesberger ahead of Ian Poulter. Like I don't, especially on this course. Now if you're playing Le Golf National, I think Poulter obviously becomes more playable. But at Whistling Straits, it's going to be very difficult for him to putt his way to 2 or 3 points at a place like that. So I went with Sergio. I think he is very playable, and I think they'll play him a lot. And the way he drove the golf ball this year, and he's so long. He's like kind of sneaky, really, really long off the tee. And you can play him with a bunch of different guys. If he starts, and he started rolling it in the FedEx Cup playoffs, he started putting really well, which is very, on brand for Ryder Cup season. So I think
were his eyes open or closed?
Yeah, who can say? I think Sergio's the play here.
Sergio for me and Kyle, Poulter for Mark and Greg, which means Shane Lowry will certainly be the top European wild card.
Obviously.
All right, gentlemen, we got to find I know people are waiting on bated breath for our best bets because we were 0 for last week. So we've got to find some winners this time around. And Mark, I want to start with you. Yours is fascinating. I got to get the analysis behind this. You are going with a very, very specific wager as your best bet. It is for foursomes day one that the United States will beat Europe exactly 2.5 to 1.5. And if that comes true, you get 6 to 1 on your money.
Is that all? It's the opening salvo of the matches. I think the Americans are going to be up for it. They're better in foursomes than people make out. And I think you've got some, you guys have talked about it. You've got some really neat looking alternate shot groupings here that Captain Stricker can line up. It's just the order that he's got to play them, and can they overcome just the gravity of the situation? But I feel I'm going to pivot back to the influence of the crowd. It's going to be huge, and the folks are going to be at a froth on Friday morning, and they are going to lift these guys to levels of adrenaline that are just off the charts. And so I feel like the Americans, they parlay that into a lead in foursomes, which is going to be good for them because that sets them up for a big afternoon with 4 balls later in the day.
Oh, okay. Well, we are going to keep an eye on that. And the good thing about this gets resolved 4 hours into this event or whatever. So we're going to find out very, very early. We don't have to wait long for that. Kyle, you and I actually have the same one here, and we do have to wait a little bit longer for this. We are going with the United States to win day 3. That is Sunday singles minus 143. Your thoughts, please, sir.
Yeah, I think that Europe is, I think, better at the top than I and you said this earlier, but I think they're better at the very top than I imagined coming in, but they're worse at the bottom than I thought coming in. I mean, I think they have probably the 4 or 5 worst guys in this. If you look at if you look at it as like a tournament field, I think they have the bottom 4 or 5, and on a course where it just doesn't play into their hands, I think that's it just seems like a very straightforward bet for the U.S. side. Now, does that mean they're going to win 10-2 on Sunday? No, I don't think so. But I think they just have such a distance advantage when it comes to the singles matches that it'll. I think you'll run into and again, this is where conserving guys' energy throughout the week comes into play. That doesn't hit until a Sunday, when all of a sudden a 45-year-old Sergio or whatever he is trying, or 43, is trying to play his 5th match of the week, and it becomes just extraordinarily difficult. So that was kind of my thinking behind going with that.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I just think that depending on how it shakes out, the United States will be favored in at least 9 of the matches, maybe 10, depending on how they shake out. Rory won't be a favorite or won't be a dog. Rahm won't be a dog. But depending on how the rest of those shake out, you could get a lot of favorites there. So I went with the United States to win day 3, which leaves, Greg, your best bet. You've essentially turned top Irish player into a little bit of a matchup because there's only 2 of them. It's Rory McIlroy. It's Shane Lowry. You took Rory McIlroy minus 187.
Yes, I think first of all, we need to get a win on the board here. We got to get some red on the board early. So I need a win in the best bet. And this one, although it's not great odds, I think there's the biggest discrepancy here of volume. And an average to poor Ryder Cup for Rory McIlroy could still outdo the opportunity that Shane Lowry has. And I think that's a big advantage for him. My guess is Shane Lowry plays 3 times, but there's a chance that he plays 2. Rory's going to have those 2 extra matches that I think is going to go a long way. So I'm kind of surprised that it's even on the board. I'm surprised it's even an option. And so for that reason, I think it's the closest thing to a sure bet on the board.
Have you Have you considered somebody getting COVID and Padraig Harrington having to sub himself in?
Well, have I considered it? No, because there's an
throw a
envelope.
wrench
There's an
into
envelope
things.
rule.
I saw that.
Yeah, Harrington can't go in there. They have the envelope rule.
Gentlemen, it's about that time. We now
Let's
must make
go.
fools of ourselves by going on record with our final prediction and score. I'm noticing that 3 of us are on one side, 1 of us are on the other side. Mark, I will start with you. To win the, are we calling this the 2020 Ryder Cup still? Technically, is this like Tokyo 2020? To win,
I think it is.
Okay, to win the 2020 Ryder Cup, who do you have, sir?
I have the favorites. I'm going with the United States. I think I was at the last Ryder Cup at Hazeltine, and it was very one-sided. You know, the final score belied how dominant the Americans were, and I feel like we're going to have a lot of the same over here. It's a plucky European team, and they're not going to lie down. They were poor in Hazeltine the last time around, but I feel like they'll put up a big battle, and I think it'll be close in the end. And in the end, your guys' call there on the final day singles will be the difference. And so I'm going America 15-13.
In similar fashion, Greg, you are also taking the United States by a similar score, this time 15.5, 13.5, which doesn't add up. It's got to be 12.5, I think. 15.5.
Some tough
right?
math there.
Yeah,
I meant 12.5.
Yeah.
I meant 12.5. You know, I originally had 15-13, and I wanted to go to I wanted to go to the half, and that's a typo. My bad.
It's okay.
That being said, 9 of the last 10 Ryder Cups have been the winner of the Ryder Cup has won the singles. I agree with you guys. I think the U.S. has a big advantage in singles play. I think there is a youth attitude on this team that plays into their favor. The home team having youth is a good thing, and the away team having experience is a good thing too. But we have so many more options in keeping players fresh, and we have highlighted it many times. The European team is very thin, and so for that reason, their stars will be a little more fatigued, and I think that gives the U.S. a really big advantage. So all in all, I think this team's ready. I like the pods that I've seen. The distractions with Bryson and Brooks, I feel like have kind of masked the advantage that the U.S. has. Maybe not in the sports, in the books, but I do think it's a big advantage. So I'm going to take it.
Speaking of big advantages, Kyle, you have predicted the largest route out of all of us. Your pick, please.
Yeah, I wanted to go like 22-6, but I let logic get the best of me. We're one insane Ian Poulter Saturday finish in 2012 away from this being probably the 4th straight win that the U.S. has on their home turf. It is. They haven't dominated in the United States, but they've been really good. And I think sometimes when we talk about the Ryder Cup, everybody talks about, and we talk about it, and we should, that Europe wins a lot when they shouldn't. But in the U.S., on a U.S. setup course, on a really big course where you can kind of take advantage of some of your strengths, the U.S. has been really good. And I think you combine that with the fact that, again, this generational turnover, to having 6 rookies, to having JT and Spieth be the biggest personalities in the room and not Tiger and Phil. I think JT and Spieth are bought in a way that Tiger and Phil never were. And I don't hold that against Tiger and Phil. I just think it's meaningful that JT and Spieth are the leaders now. And I think it's gonna lead to a really dominant win for them at Whistling Straits. So definitely, producer Jacob, cut this whole thing after Poulter goes 4-0-1 and Europe wins by 2.
Well, that's my prediction, is that Europe will win by 2, 15-13. I think the case for the United States team kind of starts and ends with raw talent. And I think that I've got concerns around Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka. The Europeans have cracked the code on this. They figured it out. Seems a little bit windy at Whistling Straits. These guys aren't as bad off the tee as everybody wants us to believe. They're very top heavy. I don't know, man. Just give the plus 200 and let me roll with the Euros.
You've made a very compelling case there. I got to tell you, I'm listening to you going, he's right. That's right. I'm on board. Yeah, you know what? I'm close to pivoting, Rick, after that argument.
But what do you do with a year like 2016, right? Where I think that this U.S. team is more talented than that one was, and the way the course is set up just is such an advantage as it was at Hazeltine. How do you like get from there to here?
Yeah, the big thing for me is there are 3 or 4 studs on the European team, but we have seen time and time again. We see this even in our WGC match play. This is the most volatile form of golf that we have. Team golf, team match play golf is incredibly volatile. It's one shot here, it's one shot there. No one is as big of a favorite as you like to think they are, and it's just to me. It's more about trusting your teammates and understanding that you have the right system in place than talent at times.
I'm on board, Rick.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I will say this. I think the actual best bet is Europe to win by 1, 2, 3, because you don't think they're going to blow out the United States. That's 4-1. So if you don't like the plus 188 or plus 200 for them to actually win by 1, 2, 3 is nearly twice as long.
I think that's fair. I think that I've basically resolved to only pick the home team going forward because everything you're saying is correct. I just think that, again, the course and the length it's going to, over the course of the week, and especially in singles, it's going to be such a factor. And that is, I will never pick the US and Europe again. I'll probably pick them next time. In my mind, I'd never want to pick the US and Europe again because they remove that. They erase that. They erase that advantage. They go to places like Le Golf National. They set it up with thin fairways and high rough. And yeah, their stars struggle. Rory and Rahm struggled in Paris last time, but it didn't matter because everybody else, just destroyed a U.S. team that's built very much like Rahm and Rory. So, yeah, all that to say, I think Whistling Straits in the end is going to play right into the US's hands. And it might not be until Sunday singles, but I think eventually they will end up victorious.
Yeah, I do worry about Sunday singles and distance. I do. I certainly worry about it. Gentlemen, Ryder Cup, it's happening. Anything else before we get out of here? This was your mega pod. We went through everything. Did we miss something that needs to be quickly discussed?
Yeah, the weather, and it's going to be like lows of 49 in the morning on the banks of the Michigan over there at Lake Michigan. It's
pack a jacket.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm working on that right now. It's gonna be chilly.
I like young guys in the cold.
I like Europe in the wind.
That came out wrong, Greg.
Yeah, let's get some cold, windy conditions. Let's go.
Yeah, Fleetwood might go 5-0 if it's windy.
It's going to be fascinating stuff. The visuals are going to be awesome, and we're stoked for you guys to get out there and see it in person. Let me thank producer Jacob. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, it's Greg DuCharme. You can find him on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. Mark Immelman, you can find at @Mark_Immelman. Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.